At 25, I entered a marriage with a woman 13 years my senior, stepping into the role of a stepfather to a 15-year-old girl. Usually composed and adaptable, I prided myself on being level-headed. However, when my marriage crumbled, I found myself losing that sense of calm I once held onto so tightly. Cast: me, Alma, former wife; Marina, stepdaughter; Carl, stepdaughter's biological father; Karen, BF's ex-wife. It was summertime, 3 years into my relationship with Alma, and Marina had recently graduated high school. Alma approached me, mentioning Marina's curiosity about her biological father. She expressed the desire to write to an old address she had for him, hoping he might be interested in reconnecting with his daughter. I supported the idea wholeheartedly, believing that Marina deserved the chance to connect with her father if she wished. After a month passed, Alma informed me that Carl had reached out via email and expressed interest in getting acquainted with his daughter. Alma and Carl began exchanging emails, allowing her to gauge his intentions and letting him learn more about Marina. I felt comfortable with the situation as Alma was transparent about their correspondence and openly shared the content of their emails. Skipping ahead a few weeks, Marina and Carl established regular communication, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. I began noticing Alma spending more time on the computer, engaging in chats with Carl. When I inquired about it, she explained that they had developed a friendship during this period. I didn't dwell on it much, as Alma was transparent and considering Carl lived in Mexico City while we resided in Central CA. As time passed, several months later, Alma informed me that Marina expressed a desire to meet Carl, and he coincidentally had some time off. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. Alma planned to accompany Marina, but unfortunately, due to work commitments, I couldn't join them on the trip. Alma and Marina embarked on their 2-week journey. The first week took them to Alma's grandparents' place, while the second was slated for Cabo, where Carl was scheduled to arrive, granting him and Marina some face-to-face time. Upon their return, I picked up the girls and attempted to inquire about their trip. However, both Marina and Alma responded with curt, one-word answers. Their demeanor suggested a rift between them, and I assumed they might have had an argument on the way back, considering the tensions that can arise during long flights. A week passed, yet Alma and Marina's communication remained strained. Upon inquiry, Alma revealed their argument stemmed from issues regarding Carl. I speculated that perhaps the meeting hadn't been as prolonged as expected. Trying to resolve the tension, I suggested, maybe on Carl's next vacation, he could visit California, bringing his son so Marina could meet her brothers. They could even stay with us for a few days. Alma seemed genuinely pleased with the idea. The very next day, while both Alma and Marina were at work and I had the day off, I stumbled upon a small stack of papers on the entryway table. Curiosity led me to examine them, only to discover it was a printed-out email. My name caught my eye. With a sinking feeling, I began reading through the stack. To my horror, it contained a complete printout of Alma and Carl's email conversations conducted via her work email address. As I delved deeper, my sense of unease intensified. Their emails outlined detailed plans for the vacation, including Carl staying with Alma and Marina in the suite I had arranged for them, rather than securing his own accommodation. The most distressing part was their debate on how to approach the idea of being affectionate during the trip, justifying it by suggesting Marina should be happy her parents were reconnecting after 18 years. They pondered over how they could share a room, rationalizing their closeness. Ultimately, it turned out Marina was unhappy about the situation and refused to allow them privacy together. My immediate action was to make copies of the emails. I didn't have a plan, but knew I needed evidence. I drove to Alma's workplace and feigned an invitation to lunch, leading us to a secluded spot. There, I confronted her about the emails. Her response shocked me. She attempted to shift blame, accusing me of violating her privacy. She didn't defend herself, but rather asserted that the bond she shared with Carl was strong and that I wasn't the husband she had envisioned. We argued. I shed tears, pleading for a chance to reconcile, but all she offered was a vague maybe and the promise to think it over. In the following days, I felt like a wreck. Alone, I moped and brooded, but in Alma's presence, I portrayed an attentive husband. Then, I caught them chatting openly on our home computer, not even bothering to conceal their communication. The revenge. As the situation seemed never-ending, I realized I needed more evidence. I already had the emails from her workplace, but I sought additional proof. I discovered a program that operates discreetly, capturing screenshots and logging keystrokes, and I installed it on both our home computers. This provided me with screenshots of their chats and access to Alma's personal email accounts. I meticulously gathered every correspondence and printed it all out. Initially, I contemplated taking these emails to a lawyer for my divorce proceedings, only to discover that California was a no-fault state, rendering the emails less impactful. So, I devised Plan B. I meticulously sorted through the gathered information, arranging it chronologically, and meticulously transcribing every potential piece of useful information. Every work break was spent poring over the material, reading, highlighting, and jotting down notes. Eventually, I filled 2 notebooks with seemingly random information: Carl's workplace, his father's residence, even phrases peculiar to Carl. Phase 2 became rather intriguing. I navigated to a widely used search engine offering free email services and accessed its Mexican version. There, I crafted an email address for a fictional woman. Let's refer to her as Miss Sandoval. In my guise as Miss Sandoval, I wrote to Alma, alleging to be Carl's live-in girlfriend until recently. The fabricated tale outlined their relationship dynamics, his favorite vacation spots, his care for his sons, and the affectionate pet names he used, details extracted from their previous emails and chats. Miss Sandoval described how Carl turned verbally abusive around the same time Alma and Carl's relationship dynamic shifted. For a week, the emails exchanged between Alma and Miss Sandoval continued, and in one, I included images of a battered woman sourced online to add gravity to the false claims. While orchestrating this deceptive interaction, I still monitored their ongoing conversations, and I noticed a shift in their tone and demeanor. Alma confronted Carl about Miss Sandoval, and predictably, he denied any knowledge of her. Alma, unconvinced, grew furious at Carl's dishonesty and felt responsible for the alleged abuse suffered by this woman. Ultimately, Alma ended the relationship and shared the Miss Sandoval email exchange with Marina, convincing her that her father was a reprehensible person and urging her to sever ties with him. Meanwhile, during my surveillance, I managed to discover Carl's ex-wife Karen's social media profile and had Miss Sandoval send her copies of all the emails. While I'm unsure about Mexico's divorce laws, Karen expressed immense gratitude for the information, believing it could aid her in her 3-year-long divorce proceedings. As for Alma, she didn't emerge unscathed. When her relationship with Carl disintegrated, she attempted to mend things with me. Relishing the satisfaction of having sabotaged their relationship, I allowed her to believe that we were working on reconciling, although our marriage was effectively over. As I departed, the first eviction notice from the bank arrived, a consequence of my inadvertent lapse in mortgage payments due to the chaotic ordeal. Additionally, her workplace received an email from me containing copies of her and Carl's inappropriate exchanges, clearly indicating they occurred during company hours using the company email address. Despite the impact on my credit score, witnessing her panicked voicemails about potentially losing the house and facing demotion at work was a price worth paying. Update: to address some of the common queries I've received, Marina and I still keep in touch occasionally, but she has her own family now, and I relocated for work reasons. Marina and her biological father attempted to reconnect a few years later, but he ultimately severed ties with her because she didn't immediately behave as the loving and devoted daughter he anticipated during their first meeting. Regarding Alma and Marina, they remained unaware of my role as Miss Sandoval in the email exchanges. I want to clarify that I deliberately forgot to pay the home mortgage for several months. As I managed the online accounts and handled all the mail, she remained unaware of this intentional oversight on my part. How do you like this story? Write about it in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on the channel. Love you.